Okay, here we are again. You know, Chuck, you have covered a lot of material so far, and it's been really good information. But I know you've got more. It seems to me I remember hearing you say something about secret ballots. Can you kind of expand on that?
Sure. Secret ballots is probably the most common way we elect board of directors.
Okay.
And just like the name would imply, secret ballot is just that. So no election by acclamation. Secret ballots are mailed out by the association with a return envelope, and it's sent to everyone that has an address in your community, whether they're in residence or not. So the address on record is where that ballot will be sent. And then normally the owners will have at least 15 days to return that to the association and your board. At that point in time, then you would have them back prior to your members meeting, which, remember I mentioned, is the annual meeting normally that you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. And you would gather at that point in time at the members meeting with the ballots in hand so you can count them. So that's
okay.
the question. And I would remind you that since this is a members meeting again, there's no quorum requirement. So
okay, good to know.
just a little difference between the board
Sure.
meeting and the members meeting. It just reemphasized that.
Okay.
So the ballots that are returned then are the only ones that are going to be counted at the time. So you gather for your members meeting, mm-hmm. and you would turn the ballots over to a ballot counting committee. That could be as big, small as you want it to be. It's important, however, that they remain in the room, I think, if possible, so when the ballots are being counted, there's pretty easy to tell if there's any fraudulent activity going on.
Transparency.
Once in a while I get asked the question about, well, say a homeowner shows up at your members meeting and he has a ballot in hand. Well, you should look, is it sealed? Because if it's sealed, it's probably okay to turn that over to your ballot committee.
Okay.
If it was open, I probably wouldn't, because they might have a couple ballots in there and you don't know who's voting in that case.
Yes.
So the ballot committee gets all the ballots. They'll open them there in the same room in the presence of all your members, mm-hmm. count them, and the results are known. I would reemphasize also, and remember, if you're an incumbent board member or you're a nominee, you have no access to those ballots whatsoever. You cannot participate in the opening or the counting. So just remember that. That's a restriction on that. And obviously, common sense would say you wouldn't want that anyway.
Sure.
So the ballots are counted, and your new directors are elected right there on the spot. So now we have a new board. We're ready to go.
You're ready to go. That's
right.
great.
Isn't that neat?
Okay, now I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to do it to you. Sorry.
Right.
What if somebody resigns from this newly elected board?
So now we have a vacancy. That's what you're saying. Well, you know, the board has a duty and a responsibility, and they're authorized to appoint people to fill vacancies on the board when that occurs. A couple ways to do that. On your election, you probably, assuming that you had someone that didn't get enough votes to be elected to the board, you could approach them and say, hey, are you still interested in being the board? If so, ask them if they would fill a vacancy. They might. That'd be good. Or maybe you have a past director that's still there. You could approach them, ask them the same question. It's better to get somebody who wants to be on the board than you just arbitrarily appoint someone.
That makes sense.
And I might point out that they're only going to fill that vacancy till the expiration of that term, or if there's a scheduled election. So let's say you're on a 2-year term, for instance. I'll clarify that a little bit. 6 months into that term, somebody resigns. Okay? So at that 6-month point, they would be in that vacancy, and 6 months later is your next scheduled election. At that point in time, that vacancy would be filled by election.
Okay.
So that's how that works.
Okay.
All right. Is that clear?
That's clear.
Okay.
Next step.
Oh, the next step. Let's see. Yes, we have to certify the directors. I mean, that is something that people shouldn't take lightly. 90 days after you've been elected to your board, you have to certify to the state on a form that they give you that you've actually read those governing documents that I mentioned a while ago in NRS 116. Now, that says on that form that you understand those and you reviewed them to the best of your ability.
Right.
Are you going to know them by heart? No, I don't think anybody would probably ever say that. But it's a step that shouldn't be taken lightly. You are signing that, and
Okay.
the state knows it, and you should take it seriousness because you are a board director.
Okay. Now, is there any other steps that you need to take to get yourself organized as a board?
Well, yes, there is. So we've elected everybody. All right. So now the election's over. Our members' meeting can be terminated at that point in time. And then we open up another meeting that the agenda item, there'll be an open board meeting. The agenda item will be association organization. And by that I mean now's the time the board will elect their officers, president, vice president, et cetera,
Okay,
like
that makes sense.
It's an open board meeting. It's done in front of all your homeowners at that point in time. And remember I mentioned you have some other people that could be officers. You might have somebody who's a CPA that has volunteered to be your treasurer, for instance.
Okay.
And you know, they could be elected as an officer at that point in time. But it is a different meeting.
Okay.
It's a members meeting, it's adjourned, and your new open board meeting to organize yourself is constituted, and then that's adjourned. So at this point in time, now, we've done it all. We've nominated, you know, we've elected, we've certified, we filled any vacancies. We have a board, we're good to go for the next year. I think that's pretty good, huh?
That sounds great. Here comes another monkey wrench.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
So what happens if a board member needs to be removed for a violation or some kind of a problem? Is that possible?
Sure. So that would be a recall election, and in the state, recall or removal election can be done with cause or without cause. And let's say a board member has decided they just don't want to come to meetings anymore, they don't want to function. And your homeowners are pretty smart people, they figure that out. So they go, well, let's remove him from the board. So the procedure, pretty straightforward. The state would say they can circulate a petition amongst themselves to get at least 10%. Now your governing directives might, you know, your documents and bylaws might specify a little higher percentage, but regardless, 10% is what the state will tell you. Circulate the petition that calls for the removal of a board member, whoever, or whatever reason. That petition then is presented to the executive board, or maybe your community manager gets it. At that point in time, then the board must schedule a recall election. So the ballots have to go out, okay? I think the time frame is a minimum of like 15 days to a max of 60 that you have to have the ballots out for a recall or removal election. It's done by secret ballot. So this time, no campaigning, okay? No informational statements. So the ballot goes out, basically probably says yes for removal or no for removal. Ballots come back in, and then the board will schedule another special members meeting. Remember I talked about special meeting?
You did
this
talk
would
about
be a
that,
special meeting. And so you would gather then at the next special members meeting. You would have a ballot counting committee. They would open the ballots and count them. The results would be known. So now, if in fact during the results, if 35% of your homeowners who are voting members vote in the majority to remove a member, then they're removed. But it's important to remember that it has to be in a majority and it has to be a minimum of 35%. So therefore the member has been removed, and now we're back to filling vacancies and we start again. So that's how we go about removing a member on the board.
All right. So it sounds like we've come full circle here. You've been very, very helpful, and we appreciate your time. I'd like to give you one more chance if there's any additional item you'd like to mention before we close.
Well, you know, thinking back as a board member, it's important to remember to be reasonable in your activities with your community, your homeowners. I mean, if you're reasonable with them, they'll probably be and respond responsibly to you. And I'm reminded of a periodical that was put out by CAI. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but it talks about harmony and contentment in a homeowners association. It simply says, if board members understand their responsibility and homeowners understand their responsibility, your community is going to function real well. So that's kind of what I strive for, and I would stress that all board members out there, take that to heart. You'll have a good community if you do. I think that's about it.
Okay. Well, I like your comment about harmony and contentment. Don't we all strive for that in our communities? That would be the perfect life. So thank you again, Chuck, for your time, and thank you for your time and attention. We hope this presentation of CIC meetings and elections was useful to you. If you have any further questions, please visit our website to download additional CAI Nevada Media Education programs at cai-nevada.org.